part of what I really love to be able to offer here at Wisdom 2.0 is just a variety of practices and tools and avenues in. And some people are like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And some people are like, wow, Byron Katie makes a lot of sense. And some people are like Eckhart Tolle or Jack Kornfield. And so part of what I feel like the inspiration that we have here is that there's kind of there's not one healing journey. There's not one way to be loving. There's not one way to be more aware. There's not one way to kind of know ourselves. That there are various avenues and that we actually need different things at different times. And a meditation retreat might be just the thing that we need for quite a while. We just need a daily meditation practice. And then we reach something and we hit a wall. And maybe we need psychedelics, or maybe we need therapy, or maybe we need, but the goal isn't just to become a really good meditator, or the goal isn't to become just like a really good psychedelic person, or the goal isn't really to be really good anything. The goal is to continually be present and to learn and to show up and to tune into what it is we need in that moment and not get stuck with identities or roles and say, well, I'm a meditator, therefore I don't, or I follow this person, therefore I don't. And I feel like that's kind of one of the dangers that we have the potential of falling in kind of the wisdom world, is the wisdom world actually kind of, we become more identified with a particular state of mind or particular approach, and we're not as open to other approaches. And so that like limits our learning. So for quite some years, I didn't really want to talk about psychedelics actually on the main stage, because I was like, I just don't want to talk about it. Because I feel like I didn't really want to support that in a certain way. I was like, no, we're here about awakening inside us to what's here and what's true. And then a lot of the research started coming out, and it was like what he mentioned, like 2/3 of the people after no longer qualify for PTSD. And so I had to open my mind to that and had to realize, like, Soren, do you care about alleviating suffering, or do you just care about doing your thing? And I was like, oh, if I care about alleviating suffering, and there's something that's alleviating suffering pretty clearly, we need to talk about that. We need to be, make that a part of our conversation. And next year, if we find that standing on the top of your head for 30 minutes opens up your awareness and expands your heart, let's talk about that. Or if wearing a Donald Duck hat somehow opens all the chakras, like, great, that's what we're going to be doing one year. And so for me, the commitment is always to that emergence, right? The commitment is always to like, what's arising now, what's showing itself, what wants to come, how do we listen to what wants to come, how do we flow with what wants to come, and not get too stuck in any particular modality. Because there used to be this conversation about, in Buddhism, where they have Hinayana, which is kind of the more Theravadan approach, and then they have Mahayana as like, they would call them two kind of vehicles of Buddhism. And there was this great quote that I've always liked that said, Mahayana, Hinayana, no difference. In the end, all vehicles will be towed away at the owner's expense. And in the end, when we're on our deathbed, whether we were this meditation practitioner or that meditation practitioner or followed this person or that, like, it's not likely going to matter a hell of a lot. But what is probably going to matter is, did we open our heart? Did we love the people around us? Did we follow what was true for us? Did we live the life that was calling us? And so, I think it's really important as you hear different things from different people, and some of them could be contrary, right? Like Dick's like, I could rant on Eckhart Tolle, and I love Dick and I love Eckhart Tolle both, and they both have pieces. So can we hold a space in the culture where there's truths that can be brought forth? And I think part of my real work is holding that. And I feel like what our society and our world really needs right now is the ability to hold multiple truths, and is the ability to hold people, whether we agree with them or disagree with them, whether that's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders or whoever that is, in a way that doesn't make them smaller and that doesn't make it harder for them to change. Because as soon as we begin to put people in the boxes, we're encouraging them to stay in that box. It's like that parent's like, well, you're always this way, you're always selfish, you're always mean, you're always this. It's like, you're just reinforcing that behavior in some way. And I feel like what our culture is kind of trying to figure out is, how do we be honest about our experience and truth about our experience, but also make sure that we're not putting each other in boxes that actually make it harder for people to come out. And I don't know how to do that always, but I know that if we don't do that, what we're going to find is there's going to be a winner and a loser, and the winners are going to attack the losers, and losers are going to get really pissed off and try and take over the winners, and then they're going to become the winners. They're going to treat the losers like shit. The losers get pissed off. They become the winners. They winners, and there's this cycle, right, of like continually around the winners exile different parts, and then the next group exiles different parts. And what is the path that we can find where that is no longer our modality? And so what I would love would be, regardless of who wins the presidency in this next year, is there a graciousness to the people that didn't support you? Is there a graciousness to saying, I welcome you in, like I want your perspective. I'm not always right. I don't always know what to do. That kind of vulnerability that you almost never see in any political debate. Like you never see like, wow, yeah, I was kind of wrong about that. That's a really good point. Or, wow, that's a great idea you had. Like the compliment that just seems to be always missing. And I feel like part of our challenge with technology that happens is it reinforces so much of these kind of negative behavior, like, oh, I can't believe this person did this. And whatever gets the most likes and the most emotional charge out of us tends to kind of like rise to the top. So we're like looking at our phones or looking at our computers, and we're basically getting triggered the whole time and clicking things and responding to things without ever being really aware, like, what am I actually doing with my life? And what am I actually supporting? And so I feel like this world is in a bit of a wake-up call. Like, can we wake up? Can we wake up and actually ask ourselves, what is it that we're supporting in this moment? And is it true to our values? Are we being true to our values in this moment? Or are we just kind of feeding this system of likes and not likes and, oh my God, I can't believe he said that, and this world that like keeps us immersed? I think one of the things I really liked about Marianne this morning is when she said, are we really going to spend all of our time focusing on what's not essential? Are we going to actually prioritize what's essential? And I thought that was such a really good question. And there's certain days where I live my life, and at the end of the day, I'm like, I did not prioritize what's essential today. I mean, maybe you have those days too, where it's like, if I look back on this day, I don't really know what I contributed to much. I read a lot of news, but I don't know if I actually added much value to life or to another human being. And I feel like the society now, because we can be so easily entertained at any moment of boredom, like boredom almost doesn't exist if we have a phone. Any moment of boredom or discomfort or anything, it's like all of a sudden we have something to distract us. We have something to continually take our mind off of our feelings and off of our experience. And what kind of culture does that create? That creates a culture where it's really hard to sit with pain, and it's really hard to sit with unpleasantness. And yet we know that the most creative ideas often come from being bored and from sitting, and the most healing comes from sitting with the unpleasant and not trying to get away from it and not trying to get out of it. But we're like, wow, you know what? I'm really unhappy. Now that I've actually stopped, I realize I'm really unhappy. How do I want to deal with that unhappiness? Versus constantly busying ourselves so that we don't actually have to feel unhappiness, or we don't have to feel loneliness, or we kind of feel boredom. And what could we create as a world together if we were all shared in this intention that we're going to use our heartbeats well? Because we know that we have limited heartbeats in life, and we know that, and we know that we also don't know when our last heartbeat's going to end. Right? So we know they're going to end, but we don't know when. So are we living our heartbeats now well, right in this moment, being here? Are we living our heartbeats well? Are these heartbeats well spent? Because no matter what, if you look at Republican, Democrat, rich, poor, whatever, we're all going out the same door. None of us get out of here alive. We're all going through the same exit door, right? And the exit door might be in a year from now, the exit might be door 20 or 50 years from now. But there's this shared sense of the human condition and of this like limited life and limited heartbeats. And so I feel like what I'm trying to wake up to, and what I feel like the society is trying to wake up to, is how do we spend those limited heartbeats? And how do we spend those limited moments? And I think part of my inspiration for starting Wisdom 2.0 was I was looking for a community of people who cared about that same question. I was looking for a community of people who are like, who else can I bring together that cares about using our heartbeats well and that appreciates all the spiritual traditions, but it's not like we all come together and say, oh, we're all Buddhists, or we're all this. Like, we're not, that's fine. I'm glad there's Buddhist events, and I'm glad there's like place for people to connect. But for me, the intention with this was we're all on a spiritual path, and we're all on this journey, and there's people that we can learn from, and there's people that we can connect with, and that at the end of our life, when we're taking our last breaths, what's really going to matter to us? What is it that's going to be there? And are we living our life in alignment with that now? Or are we saying, oh, what really is going to matter is my spiritual development. I don't spend any time on that, actually, but that's what really matters. And how do we live in alignment with that? So what I thought we could do, we have a few minutes, would be to find somebody near us and kind of use that as a meditation. What do you feel like it really matters to you in this life? What is it that is your like North Star? What is it that is calling you, that is most deep and most precious and most of value, that you feel like each day you want to wake up and remember? This is what I want to remember. And see if you can find somebody near you. And if you don't know, say, I don't really know, but let me just talk about it for a few minutes, see what you might discover. And again, part of what we're doing here is we're practicing listening. And I think Marianne mentioned that today. She's like, it's so great to be in a place where people are practicing listening. So find somebody near you. We'll have a few minutes with each person and use it as a meditation. Here's what really here's what really matters to me. Here's what really gives me joy. Here's what really makes life worth living. And see what comes out. And you'll have a couple minutes each. We don't have much time, but if few people want to just shout out, I'll repeat what came up for you as you explored that question or you meditated on that question. Is there anybody who would want to just give a highlight or two of what came up for them? You're smiling. Yes, anybody? Acceptance. Acceptance is the quality that you really want to bring forth in the world. Wonderful. Anybody else? Service, And what does service mean to you? Being of use, being of help?
Yeah, and giving people what they are actually looking for and not what I want to push on them.
Giving people what they're actually looking for, not what you want to give them. Great, thank you.
Do no harm.
Do no harm. Thank you.
Authenticity.
Authenticity, to be authentic. Great, thank you. Wonderful. Healthy elder. Wonderful. All right, well, thank you for joining me in that experiment and being willing to connect and explore and learn together.